I had one client come to me and say, "Hey, Mickey, I followed your advice, but now all my customers are mad at me." I was like, "Well,
Ah,
then you didn't follow my advice if your customers are mad at you. First rule is do not alienate your existing customer base."
you have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Downloadable audio episodes can be found in the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. We are locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie, as well as Calls on Call, extraordinary answering service, and of course, the Bold Business Book. And today we're welcoming slash preparing to learn from Mickie Kennedy of eReleases, the PR model of the world, I suppose you would say, or something of that nature. So, Mickie, how is it going today?
That's going well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Tell me just really briefly, I guess in a nutshell, what is eReleases?
So, eReleases is a press release distribution platform. I started it a little over 25 years ago. I started it as a database of journalists. I was doing PR and I was faxing at the time, and a lot of journalists started requesting it for me to just email them. And I was like, wow, email is so much easier. And so I just started reaching out to journalists and building a database, and took about a year, and I launched with 10,000 journalists who said I could send them press releases. And I was just a matchmaker sending press releases to journalists. And over the years, PR Newswire reached out to us and said, "Hey, we like what you're doing. We'd love to support you. You're helping small businesses and entrepreneurs. Why don't we give you a discounted state or city distribution?" And I was just like, "Hey, most of my customers are e-commerce. They're doing national business. I'd really like to offer national distribution." And so, they charge $1,600 for a 600 word press release today. So it was a big ask. So we met. One of the things I discovered was that they have an overnight editorial team that doesn't do very much. They have to be there in case there's breaking news or getting something out to Asia, but there's just lots of hours of downtime. And I just said, "Hey, I could schedule all my releases for next business day by default. Your people could set them up overnight, so it'd be no additional labor." And with that in mind, we finally did agree that they would give me a national distribution for all of my press releases. And so that's the big aha with us, is you get a national distribution over PR Newswire, which is the oldest and largest newswire of press releases, with spending about a third of what you would pay if you went directly through them.
Nice. So, just for those that don't necessarily know, and even for me, because I think I know, but maybe I'm wrong, what is a press release?
So a press release is just an announcement to the media. It's usually written in the third person. You may have a first person quote where you say something in the first person, and it basically is just a message to the media where you're announcing something. It usually you want to make sure you cover the who, what, when, where, why, and how of your announcement. And hopefully it's important enough that it's got the building blocks for journalists to write an article about you. The goal of a press release is not to have that press release duplicated on a bunch of websites. There's a big I guess misunderstanding in the industry that that's what a newswire is, and that's what the goal of press releases is, to get your press release duplicated. And that's a distraction. It's syndication. It's always happened when releases go out, especially publicly traded companies like to have the release under like Yahoo Finance and things like that. But that's not the goal. The goal is to have a journalist write an article about you, have it appear in the New York Times, or even your local newspaper, appropriate trade publications, magazines. It also conveys to TV and radio as well as social media. There's a TikToker who is called the Snackalator, and each week he does a roundup of new snacks hitting store shelves, and he also does a weekly roundup of fast food new products and things that are coming out. And all of that he bases off of press releases that he pulls from the wire, including the images and things like that. So, what media is evolving and changing. It started decades ago with blogs, and now it includes a little bit of everything. But a lot of these same people do rely on press releases because it's a great way to get information, to get photos, and get it, really early and in advance of everyone else, and be able to use that and collect it. And the great thing about a wire, I mentioned PR Newswire, is that it is a single place where a lot of people use it. In the US, we have a duopoly basically where two people control the wire of press releases, and it's PR Newswire and Business Wire. And it is the main place that most journalists go to because they probably, 97% of all press releases of importance do end up there in either of those two places. And so, for that reason, you definitely want to make sure that you're on one of the major news wires. And it is a great way in which you can just push a button, hit send, and your release is available to so many people. And the real magic of that is when you have something that's really breaking news. Like early in the pandemic, we did a free press release for the Dining Bond Initiative, which was set up to help restaurants that were closed during the pandemic. You nominated your favorite local restaurant, and if they were able to get in contact with them, you would give money that went directly to that restaurant to help them during that time, and it would be secured through a dining bond, sort of like a gift certificate scenario. And just by hitting send once, it got over 100 articles. Major places picked it up: Wall Street Journal, Washington Post. We quit counting local newspapers because there were just so many, but we reached over 100 articles that were individually written about them through that. And it just shows you that, the leverage opportunity that's out there. Over $11 million was raised through that one marketing effort. And I challenge anybody, no matter how good you are at marketing, show me where what would have cost $350, you can hit a return of over $11 million. And it's, I think it's very difficult to do. And I will say that this is a very unusual case study that I have on the website, but it does show a wide example of the opportunity that's out there if you do have something that is of interest to the media.
Dang, that is quite the return. That's cool. Tell me, when somebody puts out a press release, because I thought they were just copying and pasting. I guess I didn't realize that the journalists or editors or whoever were rewriting it. When that gets released to these wires and all these places, do those journalists then take that press release as it is and essentially just reconfigure it, or are they having to reach out to someone and say, hey, I got a few more questions, kind of thing?
Right. So you can always tell that you've done a good job when you get an article written about you and the journalist has not contacted you.
Oh,
And
nice.
surprisingly, that is the majority of what happens is you get articles written about you and you didn't know it. So, I tell my customers, check out Google Web and Google News. A lot of places that opt out of Google News still appear in Google Web. And if you do a search and go to the little drill down and pick the date of your press release distributed to today, it allows you to define your search a little bit more, so it's definitely or more likely from that press release that these places covered you. And you can then search by product name or something that's specific to the press release announcement within there. And that's a really good way of trying to find out. But journalists will contact you if they need clarification, they don't understand something, they need more information that they couldn't get on your website. And also if they're working on something that's, slightly related. So maybe you've got a logistics solutions that's for warehouses, and maybe this person is writing a story or covering something that is maybe tangentially commercial space, and they're wondering if this could be applied to that market as well. And so they may contact you for that. But most of the time, journalists are busy. They're a lot of them are shy English majors, so they prefer not picking up the phone or playing tag through email and things like that. So you get a pat on your back when you get articles written about you and they didn't contact you, because it definitely is not the norm that they contact you unless they do have to get more information or clarification.
That is cool. Now tell me, when a press release goes out and it gets picked up, journalists, do they call them journalists or editors? I don't even know.
So most of the time they're written by journalists or writers. Sometimes they can also be editors. People are wearing a lot of hats in this industry. I don't know if you know, but the publishing industry is not as strong as it used to be. So a lot of journalists are having to do more with less resources. And so it used to be that, people would be expected to write 2 or 3 articles a week, and now they might be expected to write 2 or 3 a day. And so the
Wow.
time where they would go and research for hours is minimal. And so that's why I think that the being in a newswire is so important, because it's just one of two places that they generally can start their search and end it. And when they log in, they have a journalist login access. It's over the web. Um, they will be presented with their feed. And it may just be an industry feed if they cover one industry, or it could be brought together of 2 or 3 industries. And it could also have inclusions and exclusions. So you can say, I don't want to see stuff in my feed of headlines if it involves these keywords. Like maybe I don't cover the retail world, or maybe I only cover, high fashion. And if you mentioned Levi's or Target, I'm not interested. So you can really customize it, which makes it a valuable tool and resource for busy journalists.
All right. So these two, the what you call it, the new art PR
PR
newswire.
Newswire and Business Wire are the two, basically the two big news wires in the U.S.
So where does Associated Press fit in there?
So that's great. So a lot of people are familiar with other types of wires. There's AP, Associated Press. There's Reuters. There's UPI, United Press International, and Dow Jones, and a few others. So their model is completely different. They don't disseminate press releases. They have a team of writers, and they get press releases, and they'll turn them into their own articles. And so what happens if I'm the Baltimore Sun, and something happens that's big, national news, like I don't know, the president gets a flat tire, rather than have a busy Baltimore Sun journalist write that article, they just pull it from the Associated Press. They've already written the article. They've written it once, and they license it to lots of different places. And a lot of these publications will belong to one or multiple wires. And the way it works is they'll just pull that article, put it in their newspaper, and rather than have to pay their journalists to write that article or take them off of another story, they can just license that. And then at the end of the month, or whatever the term is, they add up the number of articles that they used from those wires, and they pay a fee to them, or they may have a subscription arrangement or something like that. But that's the way they worked. So would Reuters or the Associated Press post a press release on as content? Never, because they can't hold the copyright to it. But they could
Oh,
take that press release and then turn it into an article that they've written. They control the copyright, and they can then license that article to others.
oh, interesting. So they're somewhat of a middleman, kind of ish.
I mean, kinda. I mean, basically, they are a franchise in which they are, selling or licensing these articles. And rather than having a busy journalist at your place, or maybe you just don't have the staff to cover everything, and but yet you want to plug in a few national stories, it's easier just to license these, and you're getting really great content, because generally these are like top-notch, well-written articles. And you'll see in lots of publications where it'll say Reuters or AP or Dow Jones, and you just know that that wasn't written by that publication, but it was licensed and put in there rather than having to write it themselves.
Huh, that is so interesting. I remember back a long time ago, I had a printer repair business, and we got called by a TV station, and it was a crisis. It was emergency. It was, I don't know, 5:30 at night or something like that. And I go there, and they have this fax machine, this $89 brother piece of junk fax machine. And they're like, this is our AP fax. And I didn't know. I'm like, AP fax. And I was like, wait a second. Your Associated Press, like, this is this little thing, this piece of junk, this barely better than a calculator thing. That's where you're getting your AP news. And they wanted it for the 6 o'clock news. So they're like, quick, you have less than 20 minutes to fix this thing that was a piece of junk when it was brand new.
Right. Yeah, they
And
don't do
it's
that anymore. And at the big newsrooms, instead of a fax machine, they would have a dedicated feed come in, and it would often just spit it out, dot matrix printer, just print out the
oh,
feeds
you're
from
kidding.
these places. Yeah.
So it's just
The
zipping right
green and white
along.
paper. Yeah.
Oh, that's
But it's come
funny.
along now. It's all online now.
All right. Yeah, it was funny. I'm just like, you could just have spent another $80 to get another one just in case.
Right.
It's funny, like how many advertisers are relying on them to do their job and all that jazz. Interesting. So I was poking around on your website. I think you mentioned syndication versus distribution, and I think you touched on that. But could you elaborate on that more? Because I was reading your website and I was like, oh my gosh, I'd paid for PR before, but I couldn't tell you which one I paid for. I had no
Sure.
idea. No idea.
So So, there are a lot of companies out there that have wire in their names, and one, offers $100 distribution, and it doesn't reach any journalists. And they used to be a little bit more forthcoming of it and just say it was online visibility, was the goal. But basically, it just syndicates in your press releases on a bunch of different websites. The majority of them they own, and they have created all these WordPress press templated websites that are dedicated to a certain industry or location, and they'll send you a bunch of links to your press release on these websites. Now, the links on these websites are no follow links. And Google has made it very clear that we're not penalizing people that have syndicated stuff, because it happens. Even when you use PR Newswire, your press release does get on a bunch of websites. But it shouldn't help you. And I have people who swear that it does, but I also know that I think it's very unlikely, and if it is, it's very fleeting. The goal is to get real articles written about you. And the great thing is that you get SEO benefit even when there are no links, when it's an earned media article. For example, you get picked up in the New York Times and there's an article about you, but there's no link, because very rarely does any of those national publications link to you. New York Times says that they never link to you, but despite that, I did get them to link to me once. By
Nice.
having a resource page that was so valuable and relevant to what they were discussing, they did link to it. But so they broke their own rule there. But generally, they don't link to you. But Google has a patent, and they actually use it, where if they can contextually tell that this article is about you, you get an implied link. And a lot of people will tell you when they get in the Wall Street Journal and they get in the New York Times, their SEO boosts, 3 to 6 months out. And it is an implied link that definitely Google still conveys, and it makes sense. If they can tell an article about eReleases press release distribution is 99.9% certain it goes to eReleases.com, why not treat that as a signal of trust that this is, a major site like New York Times is talking about them. That shows that they have some authority, and then advance them in the SEO.
That is awesome. I like that. There was I'm trying to think, there was I want to say C word, but I don't even know if that's worth saying here. There's a company that I've seen listed, Cision.
Cision.
Okay, what is Cision?
So Cision is the parent company of PR Newswire.
Oh,
And they also offer a Cision journalist database, which is kind of what they were known for. And then they acquired PR Newswire, and they've also acquired PR Web, which is another one of these online syndicators. It's not, ideal for reaching journalists, but really good for online visibility. But yeah, they have such a strong database of journalists that you can license for, I think, 15,000 plus a year to be able to send to. It's really used predominantly the database by PR firms, and the reason for it is, even if you acquired that entire database of journalists, the likelihood it's useful for you, it's very small, because you don't have a relationship with them. But a good PR firm will take that database, follow it as new people come in, use it to introduce themselves, and start a connection and a relationship. And hey, how can I help you? What kind of stories you working on? Oh, I have a client that I think would be appropriate. Can we, discuss that? And a good PR firm is really good at that in establishing relationships. And for them, the database makes sense to have and to have access to. But for some people, they just buy the database and do the shotgun approach, and then are surprised or not surprised when nothing happens. And I think it's just it's relationship based. When I started eReleases, I contacted 10,000 plus journalists myself for a year, and said, "Hey, I'd like to send you press releases by email," and they're like, "You're not going to charge us?" That's what that was I heard that again and again because they thought this is great. I'm just sitting here for my computer, and all of a sudden, I can get these press releases rather than going to this dot matrix printer that we all have to share in the office and look at stuff that comes in and things like that. So it was really innovative at the time. And I think that, but it still shows that relationship-based things work well. And I always tell people that PR firms are definitely great, and if you can afford them, go for it. But with many costing 20, 40, $60,000 a year or more, it's outside of the budgets for my customer base, which are entrepreneurs, small businesses, authors, speakers, startups and things like that. So I say, hey, take advantage of the wire, draft press releases that are compelling and strategic and important, and get those out. And you'll definitely, if you're doing a PR campaign of 6 to 8 releases, you should see 2 or 3 of them get some media pickup.
Nice. So when you have a client, are they kind of a one shot, one kill kind of thing? Like, hey, we're a new business, PR go or press release goes out and they move on with their life? Or are
Well,
they
some
is
of
the
some
idea
of them do. Some of them
okay.
do. We do sell a la carte because we just want to keep the entry, affordable for people to dip their toes in without a commitment. I do think sometimes that makes it difficult because there are people who will send out a release and then nothing happens and they just move on to Pinterest or whatever else the next shiny red object is in marketing. But we do offer packages and try to get provide education for people. The biggest thing we get is we get a finished press release, and people often find us when they are just looking to send a release out. And so we take their money, we send it out, but we also recognize that most of those people aren't going to get media coverage because it wasn't a great press release.
Oh.
And by that, I was like, it's a product launch press release, which can be great, but it's one where here's our product, here's a list of features, and here's a page dedicated to it and a way to buy it. And I know that a journalist is looking for a story, and they like a story arc. They're story builders. There's not a lot of stories there. A list of features is not a story. So I try to tell my customers, hey, if you have a product launch release, put a use case study in there. Here's somebody who had this problem, this concrete problem. They used or beta tested your product. This is the results that they saw. Here's a quote by them talking about their experience with you. That makes more of a story arc for journalists to build a story. And, at the end of the day, a journalist's job is, of course, to produce content, but even more importantly is to keep their paid audience, or in the case if it's free, their audience that they do have, happy. And that involves educating that audience with stuff they want to know, or entertaining them with stuff that they want to be delighted by. And so, you not having a story or an arc makes it very difficult for that journalist to turn it into content that their audience will want to consume. So taking a product launch press release and putting a use case study is one way to do that. Another thing that you can also add to a product launch release is, what are the stakes? If you've got a logistics solution, what does that mean in your business? Maybe 4% of businesses in your industry file bankruptcy every year, and overwhelmingly it's because of this bottleneck or this problem that prevents them from reaching profitability. Search for numbers that are available in your industry, data points, and incorporate those into your press release.
All right. That is interesting. I had no No idea. I guess I know that I've paid for press releases for different things, but I guess in my mind, it was always, I don't feel like this is newsworthy that this business started
Right.
or that this new product is out. But you have a very interesting point about the storyline. So I want to quiz you a little bit about the length because I've heard different people say 300 words, 200 words, 500 words. And I'm like, who's going to read that? And then if you're telling a story, you could have novels, right? So
Right.
what is a good size of press release to keep a story in there, to keep it compelling, but also short enough that someone's going to actually read it?
I think that like 98% of press releases can be satisfied between 400 and 600 words. I think
Okay.
that 80% of releases should be 400 words. And maybe there's arguments to be longer. I worked on a press release recently where it involved a medical product that had four different owners who had very idiosyncratic and strange backgrounds. I wanted those stories to be in there. So I had to dedicate a paragraph to each of these people because they were just beautiful. And I realized that that would be something that the media would resonate with. And so that one was longer. That one was a little over 600 words. But I think that most copy should strive for 400 to 500 words. If you have something that's very technical and you want to get a lot of information in, 600 words can be fine. There are exceptions to this, but it mostly is publicly traded companies who have data points like their balance sheet or revenue numbers that they have to publish, and those are cases where those releases can go 12 1400 words. But I don't work with publicly traded companies, so I don't think that would apply for most people. Going back to the four founders of that company that I thought had such interesting background stories, uh, that's something that a lot of people don't realize. If you are a startup, is there something idiosyncratic or strange or just interesting about how this business came to be or the product came to be? There's a reason that everybody that goes on Shark Tank opens with their story. I was laid off and I had this hobby and I wondered if I could turn it into a business. My dad died and he always made this chili, and I felt like, could I put these spices out or something like it? And what it is it's a way to just break through all this, corporate logos and names and just get people to care about you, have a human interest element. You're humanized, and people love, the stories behind businesses, what the journey was. Sometimes these are inspirational. They're often vulnerable. Sometimes they can be funny. Sometimes they could be, in the case of these founders, most of them were very just silly and idiosyncratic, how they ended up from one place into the healthcare arena, medical arena. And I thought that that worked really well for them. But, don't discount yourself. A lot of small businesses want to appear more corporate and professional, and they don't like to share, mistakes they've made or obstacles they've overcome. But I had one client who had an embarrassing story of how they had to cancel Thanksgiving, and the whole family's having to, fulfill orders and put them in boxes to get them out when shipping opened on Monday. And I told them they should put it in the press release. We didn't lead with it. We put it down towards the bottom. But it became the opening paragraph of a two-page Inc. magazine article about them. And at that time, they were very successful, but that was something that happened early on with them. And I think that the reason it resonated so well is it's something that any entrepreneur can identify with. We've all had mistakes or shortcomings or embarrassing little things where we just have to step up and, call on people to assist us and get through it. And I think that that was one of the ways in which Inc. magazine recognized this would be a great lead into an article about this growing company where we can really just humanize them, share something, a vulnerability that any entrepreneur would recognize, and then go into an article where we then talk about their growth and their achievements.
Nice. So I was digging a bit on your website. I saw you started in 1998. And while you're chatting, I'm thinking 1998. I don't think Google was even around in 1998. Or if
Um,
it was in someone's basement.
I'm not sure either. I know that I started advertising in Google in the early 2000s, but I don't remember
Hmm.
exactly when. I remember the first paid advertising for search was go2.com, which
Oh
then
yeah.
became Overture, and then Google stole that from them and then paid a settlement. But Google was hemorrhaging money so bad that they'd run out of money, and they had burned through all of this offerings and they were desperate. And they went to the offices of go2.com, overture.com, and said, share with us how your pay-per-click advertising works. And their engineers looked at it, and the idea was they were going to license it to Google. And Google engineers came back and they said, there's no way we could implement this in time. We'll be dead in the water. So they said, let's just steal it and make it ours. We program it, we engineer it, and we launch it. And they did, and it saved the company. And then they just said to the owner of Overture and GoTo.com, which I think was an investment firm, here's a bunch of Google shares, and they cashed out for hundreds of millions or maybe even billions of dollars later. So it worked out well for everybody, but that's just how desperate Google was at the time and how close it was to like the lights going out because people had put so much money in and they were widely used, but they didn't have any idea how they were going to monetize themselves. They knew they didn't want to do banner ads or, traditional advertising. And they just, now they are who they are. But yeah, those were the early years. And I could bid on stuff for, 10 cents each. And now there's certain keywords that I pay 40 to $60 a click. So
Yeah,
times
it's
have
gotten crazy.
changed. Yeah.
It's gotten crazy. So the businesses that you target, they're generally small mom and pop places that just are they searching for PR help or are they
Most of
looking
them
for
are
advertising
looking
and they
for press
stumble?
release submission, press release distribution. Most of them have a press release they've already written, and they're looking for who to use to send it out. And so, it is, an education place. And so, we get the same questions. Why should I pay you $350 for your new customer special when, EIN press wire is $99? And we're like, well, with them, it's syndication and it goes on a few websites that no one watches and has no traffic, or you could, send it to some place that'll actually get it in front of journalists. We don't guarantee you'll get pickup, but there's the possibility you'll get pickup. I can guarantee with almost 99.99% certainty, no one gets media pickup with the online syndication only because journalists never see it. It's not put in front of them.
Interesting. Tell me with what is that email help a reporter out? Where does that
Yes.
come into play?
Okay. So help a reporter out, which is rebranded. It's really great 10, 15 years ago. And the journalists, they'd aggregate basically calls by journalists looking for a story. And they'd say, hey, I'm looking for someone, who's in, dry cleaner that's gone green and they're, using environmental methods. And I want to talk to someone about that. And then you have like your pick of like, 5 to 10 dry cleaners sending you their themselves. And the really good ones will put a great quote in there of like a really concise, powerful quote. So a journalist is like, "Ooh, I don't want to lose this guy because that quote's so good." And now, journalist sends a message out, and you might have 2,500 people reply. So the likelihood that you get picked up today is very remote. In most cases, it's 700 to 800 people you're competing with, but in some competitive spaces, yeah, journalists get as many as 2,500 pitches. And
Holy cow.
sometimes they'll just cut it off after like 2 or 300 and just say, choose from this.
Yeah, I
But
would think he'd cut it off after 10.
right. So it was
That's
great. It was great when nobody knew about it. Now
okay.
everybody knows about it. And I think that they've put up some paywalls so that that will slow down the number of people. But it is still a lot of people competing for that. And it's not really as effective as it was. It's one of these ideas that if you were doing it for a small community of people, it would work really well. But once you open it up to the public, it becomes a bad thing. Just, like my grandmother's always used to tell me what day the zoo was free that weekend, and I'd be like, great, because that's the most expensive day for me. It's going to be crowded. There's going to be long
Ah,
lines, and for me, my time is worth a lot more. It's those are the days to avoid for me, not the days to take advantage of it. And I think that's kind of what has happened to that product. Um,
gotcha.
but that being said, around the same time that Helper Reporter came out was this whole trend called newsjacking. And it was basically if something was breaking in the news, like the credit card breach at Target was one of these things that just everybody was writing about it, and a lot of people in who were in the space of providing risk management and security consultants were doing press releases with their opinion on this and their quotes. And at that time, I realized newsjacking doesn't work anymore. I went and did some searches, and I counted in a 7-day period over 1,400 press releases that reference the Target breach. I then looked at the number of articles that came out at that time going forward 3 weeks, and there was over 200 articles, and I was just like, you did the math, almost very few of the articles mentioned a security consultant or got a quote from them. So it was just too many people uh, competing for too small of spots. That being said, there are approaches, and you have to be a little creative. In that case, I had a client come to me and said they wanted to basically do the same thing. They wanted to newsjack about the credit card breach, and they were security consultants. And I said, what do your customers look like? And they just said, well, they're everybody. I'm like, but who's a great customer? And they're like, oh, well, this, Domino's is a great customer because, they buy lots of these terminals. And I'm like, okay, and they pay you a lot. Well, no, they get a big discount because they have so many locations. So I don't make a lot of money from them, but they're a good client. And I was like, well, who do you make your most money with? And he goes, mom and pops. I was like, who? And he's like, just an individual pizza shop, someone selling subs, going to a dry cleaner, anybody with a credit card terminal on their counter, and they're not a franchise, and there's not a lot of locations. And I'm just like, nobody's writing about that person in context of the Target credit card breach. Let's write a press release where it says, hey, are you a small business with a credit card terminal on your countertop, and you have no idea if you're at risk of the same thing that happened to Target? Read on. And we shared a lot of security tips and how they could do an audit. And it was all written for that mom and pop individual person. And that one did get a few articles written about them. And I guarantee if we'd done the other approach where we're just generalist and we're talking about this generally, nobody would have picked it up. So, in those cases, being layered and nuanced works really well when everybody is saying the same thing. Another thing you can do when everybody's saying the same thing, if this doesn't cost you customers or alienate you with your customer base, be a contrarian. Journalists like to cover both sides of a topic. Often they don't because no one's there raising their hand saying, hey, I've got something negative to say about electric cars. And everybody's talking about how great they are. I've got uh, a rational reason for why we shouldn't embrace them. The environmental cost of pulling these out of the ground, the labor involved with some of this stuff with children is crazy. Taking 30 to 50,000 gallons of water to put out a fire involving electric car, I don't know. And not to mention, are we creating a bigger landfill problem at the end of the life of these batteries? And maybe we should slow down, answer these questions, and then think about it going forward at a pace that makes sense and at a way in which we can address these issues. And I think that is a rational way in which you can be a contrarian and not seem like the crazy person that's out to the left with conspiracy theories and things like that. But often what you'll find is if it's a big hot button item that is often in the news, you can often be in multiple articles because you're the only person that's been quoted and given an opinion that is the con side of it, and that's a great way to stand out as well.
That, it's so funny you say that because I was joking with my buddies. I mean, this was back the first time that Trump ran. I'm like, that guy's a marketing genius because all he has to do is get people fired up. And he's got a crowd that is super easy to fire up because they're just looking at something like, we got all these pitchforks. Let's find a target kind of thing. I'm like, it's marketing genius. And I was trying to think, how can I apply that to my business?
Right.
And I couldn't think of a way without pissing off a lot of people.
Right. That
Um,
is the thing about being contrarian. I had one client come to me and say, "Hey, Mickey, I followed your advice, but now all my customers are mad at me." And it's like, well,
ah,
then you didn't follow my advice if your customers are mad at you. First rule is do not alienate your existing customer base. Make sure
sure.
the opinion that you take is not going to cost you customers or make it difficult for you to keep your customer base.
You raised an interesting point though. We're in the customer service business, and I feel like customer service with kiosks and self checkouts and stuff like that is circling the drain. So maybe we could do something. I'll have to check into that or dig into it. So tell me a story about writing a press release because I bring up the help a reporter out thing because I subscribed to those emails for years. And I think I've submitted 2 articles because I was like, okay, this one really applies to me. At the time, it was printer repair or something like that. I got to write a press release. And I'm like, well, what does a press release look like? I didn't even know. So when you say people are offering press releases to you for you to release, is that typically what people do, or are they actually hiring a writer that knows what they're doing?
I think for a lot of people, they're writing the release themselves. And I don't have a problem with that. If you look at a press release, they're supposed to be very readable and understandable. They're supposed to be like an eighth grade level, so, the complex words outside of industry related jargon that needs to be there. Yeah, you don't want to have the 25-cent words when the 5-cent words work fine. And I do believe that the average person can look at a press release and a template and write a pretty decent release. And for those that can't, I think you can lean on AI. The great thing about an AI written press release is uh, it it isn't going to be published in these articles and places like that. Uh, it'll be written as an article by journalists. So you're basically just providing a tool for the journalist to hopefully turn into articles. And so me personally, I don't feel comfortable putting AI written like blog posts on my website because I feel like, I don't know how Google is going to feel about that today or a year from now. But I know that Google can definitely determine that that was written by AI. I know that Google has the powers and the might to figure it out, and I don't want to con anyone. So I'm protective of the content I put on my website. Uh, if a press release was going to be the end product, I wouldn't suggest AI, but the fact is it's not supposed to be. It's the article that's written by journalists. And so I say if you're not a great writer, feel free to lean on AI. Where I think AI falls short with a press release is the what the press release should be about. If you just say, "Hey, I'm a press release distributor and I've been in business since 1998 and here's my about section, write me a press release." It'll write a press release and it'll probably read well, but it's not going to be newsworthy or important enough for a journalist to probably engage with it. So, maybe you could brainstorm with it, but I find that a lot of times you want to come to the AI knowing exactly the hook, what you want to promote and what the lead is, and go from there. And that being said, I often, I feel like I'm punishing AI. I will be like, rewrite the third paragraph. Give me five or opening paragraphs. Trying different approaches. Give me 20 different headlines to choose from with this thing, and I will then take what I think is the best and maybe incorporate some elements from the other pieces. But if I'm not happy with it, I go back to it and make it, rewrite it, and redraft it, and get to where I need to be. Um, with Chat GPT specifically, I found that with 3.5, I couldn't get it to write a 400 to 600 word press release. It would stop at 270 to 280 words most of the time. I don't have that problem anymore. My approach then was to break it down and say, give me the opening paragraph. Give me the next paragraph. And if I fed it piecemeal, I would get a press release that was 400 to 600 words. But I'm finding I'm not having to do that now. So I do think that that's really cool. You can put what the word count is you want. You may have to massage that by editing or whatever, but I do think you should also spend a little more time with the quote. If you ask it to include a quote in the press release, really spend some time on that because I think I've mentioned that journalists can really be captivated by an amazing quote and say, I'm going with this person because that quote's so good. I want to use that in my article. The same thing, if you have a press release with an amazing quote, the journalists might forgive a mediocre press release if they know there's an amazing quote there that they can build a story around. And what makes an amazing quote? Sometimes it can be, the creativity and flourish, how well written it is. Maybe those are instances where you can use a 25-cent word, but it can also just be how powerfully concise you paraphrase something and said it in a way that's powerful and meaningful. And if it's controversial, if you say something that's sort of, against what everyone else thinks is a little bit contrarian or is negative, generally journalists don't want that to appear anywhere but within a quote so that they can attribute it to that person. And so I think spend a little time on the quote, make it meaningful. So that when a journalist does see that press release, he'll say, hey, this looks like a good idea. Wow, that's an amazing quote. I'm definitely going to move that to my probably pile for consideration. And so, I think that AI is one of those things that is a great tool. Use it as a tool. There's other resources for brainstorming strategic types of releases. I would recommend you go to those first and then figure out what you're going to write before you get to AI.
Interesting. Tell me, you mentioned the relationship with the journalist. So does that still come into play with with the PR stuff? Or is
It
that
does.
because I can't imagine you're making a phone call to every journalist saying, hey, I got this
No,
new pizza place, whatever.
no, we don't do pitching, but there is still email distribution that happens, and these are people that recognize us. It can unsubscribe at any time, so it is a little bit of a relationship. It's not a personal pitch. We don't know all of these journalists anymore. It's just too many people. If I was a PR firm, I'd pick like an industry, and I would drill down and make it my job to get to know the top 100 journalists in that space and foster a relationship. That wouldn't happen in a day. It would be something I'd try to work on over a 2 to 3 year period and get comfortable touching base with them, maybe quarterly or anything like that. And that's something that you can do as well. There's a lot of companies that maybe they don't have a national market. And when they come to e-releases, I'm like, we can do our release and then do a local saturation, but I think when it comes to local media, that's something that you should facilitate yourself. And if you
Mm.
are in a city or a metro, just think about it logically. There's probably less than 10 people who would write about you. Less than 10. That is so easy for you to develop a relationship with those people. It might be as few as four. You look at your local paper and who's the person who generally covers your industry. If you're lucky enough to have a business magazine or business newspaper, or in the case of Baltimore, we're lucky enough to have both of those right now. Who at those publications would write about you? Reach out to them, see if their email address is online. If it's not, reach out, call, and ask for their email address. These are not celebrities. These are writers in your community, and they're supposed to be approachable, and you're supposed to be able to give them story ideas. So they will give you their email address 95% of the time. Sometimes they might just say, I prefer a phone call or I prefer fax. I don't think that's very common. It used to be some would say I prefer pitches through Twitter, but I think that Elon Musk has taken care of that so that most journalists are not really on Twitter the way they used to be. So or X now. But I think that these are things that you can do, and then you reach out to these people on a regular basis. And what that looks like is as you have news that is important in your space. And I say try to do it at least quarterly. at the very least. And what does that look like? If you have something important, a new product, a new service, a new location, any of those things, yeah, that's fine. But a lot of times you're not going to have any of that. You're going to have to create this out of nothing. And what does that look like? Well, there could be trends in your industry. Going green and environmental is one of those things. Every industry has to face that. So if you're a local dry cleaners, you're doing something to that's green. You have to be. That's the way the industry's going. You could just reach out to them and say, "Hey, I've noticed a lot of people in my industry have been talking about getting rid of this one chemical in at the dry cleaners. And I'd love to share with you what we've done to go green and how we've adopted this safe thing. And I can provide photos. And boom, here's an amazing quote about that. And it's like, while the whole dry cleaning industry has been divided about how to go green, it seems like the one thing that they now agree of is this particular chemical is the worst. And we are proud that we, have removed that 3 years ago, or something to that effect, and make it, massage it, play with it, make it powerful, make it stand out, and then just email that. You don't have to email a press release. Literally just a few sentences. I do think having a great quote in there will make you stand out, and just do that quarterly with each of these people, and eventually you'll get picked up. You may not get picked up the first year. It is hard to break in, but what you'll find is as you email these journalists, you will stay top of mind after a while. And it usually is around 10 months when that happens. And a magic thing happens the second year. You will probably get published, but it probably won't be something you pitched. It'll be that journalist under deadline working on something completely different, and they're talking about, I don't know, charities or something, and they're like, I want to plug in a local business here. Who could I do that with? I remember that dry cleaner who's pitched me 4 times. I'll reach out to them and ask if they're doing any initiatives with, nonprofits or charities or something like that.
Oh,
And the thing is, when these people call, be creative, open your mind. If it doesn't exactly apply to you, think of ways in which it could, and just say, well, it's interesting you suggested that. We haven't done anything with charities in the past, but okay, it's April. It's April. What the heck's going on? Look up online. What's going on later this year? Is there a cancer month? Is there something else going? We plan on doing next month or in June, a cancer initiative, and I'd love to. I don't have the time right now, but I'd love to share some concrete ideas of what we're doing, and then put a quote in there and reply to them. And what you'll find is, boom, that'll be your first article. And it just happened because you were persistent in reaching out to them without being a pest. And you are someone that they're now thinking of, and they're actively thinking of you, are part of the mix. And when I'm working on stories, I can plug them in. I can also stay open to them as they pitch me. And it's one of the reasons that you tend to see the same companies used again and again in a lot of local newspapers and publications. It's not necessarily that they're advertising. It's because they've just established that relationship with the journalist, and journalists who are busy can just reach out and grab someone that they know is always available and easy to plug in.
that is so crazy. That is, man, now that you're saying that, I'm thinking when I look, I guess what I'm paying attention to is uh more corporate Fortune 500 type stuff. But I think when I look at the news, which isn't often national news, whatever, it's like I can guarantee there's going to be some Trump articles, some Tesla articles. I'll see Jamie Dimon in there, and there'll probably be some fast food thing, usually McDonald's. Like I remember seeing an article about McDonald's, their discounted menu or something like that, and I'm like, how did this make the news? Like, really? Is this really news? Does that mean that the world is perfect right now? It's shy of like when the discount on a McDonald's cheeseburger or whatever is big news. But I'm like, now that you're saying that, I'm like, holy cow, is that just PR teams
It
or
is. I mean, and some people are very clever. If they see something that's trending in the news right now, uh, like back when everybody was talking about Grimace shakes and things like that, uh, if you're a local dentist and you say, I've banned my entire staff. If they get McDonald's over the next 6 weeks during this promotion, they're fired. And
Wow.
and you put a quote in there and you send that to your local newspapers and business magazines, they're probably going to contact you. And that's a great way in which you're kind of newsjacking, but you personalized it very much for your business. And you can just talk about, I'm a dentist. I see people putting garbage in their mouth all the time and the outcomes. And right now, there's this company promoting these purple shakes everywhere, and people are going out and buying 3 or 4 a week. I'm not going to participate or encourage it. And so, a grimace shake is not a protected class, so therefore, I will fire anybody who brings in McDonald's over the next 6 weeks while they're serving these awful things. And you just put that, don't say awful, go get a thesaurus and say something crazy and powerful and weird. People will remember that. And people will remember, oh, that's the opinionated dentist. But
That's
he has a point.
I can just imagine the front desk person reading the news like, wait a second. And she looks over at her lunch like, oh, throw in the trash, throw in the trash. Oh, that's genius. Mickie, thank you so much. You shared a ton of information about PR stuff because I've heard of it. I've paid people and companies to do it for me. I know now I did it wrong. Um, I guess what I was looking at, I know what I want to ask you. I have seen places have little like we got Fox, we got NBC, we got CNN, little things like featured in, and then you try to click on it, like it's not a link, it just shows this little logo.
Right.
So is that one of those games where you just send it to a wire and it was featured in kind of thing?
Right. And even when you go over PR Newswire, a little bit of syndication happens. There's like 100 of those links, and you can pull those logos. There's always usually a Fox affiliate, an ABC affiliate. So yeah, you get to put the little logos up if you want to. I don't know how meaningful that is. I think that when you have an actual article written about you, that's the real goal. And the reason for that is when someone reads an article, there's this huge credibility thing that happens. A journalist has written about you. We often see that as a signal of trust, and we allow ourselves to have an emotional response to the article that we do not allow when it's an advertisement. When it's an
Mm,
ad, we are rigid. I might click through just to see what this is about, but
yeah.
I'm not buying.
Walls
But
are
when
up.
it's a
Yeah.
but when it's an article, it's completely different. I've read so many blog posts or articles about Kickstarter campaigns. I'm like, whoa, this guy is cool. He has figured out this little niche and need. And you know what? I don't really need it, but I'm going to click through. And next thing I know, it's like, it's only $35. I'm going to help this guy support his dream. And next thing I know, it's like, I don't know if I'll ever even get this, but I just spent $35. And that's what happens with earned media. And you can then take that article and rather than have these logos, put that article on your website. Take that article, take that link, share it on social media, put it in front of your customers and your leads. And people always go, they're already customers. Why would I put it in front of customers? I'm like, churn. There's always a certain amount of customers that are going to shop around and say, I just need to make sure I'm using the best company. So we're going to try a different one this year. If they read that article, they get that same signal of trust, that social proof when a journalist writes about you. They're like, we're with the right company. No need to move around this year. Leads, there's always a percentage that you're not going to convert. And, I hate to admit, but with my leads, it's over 80% don't convert. But maybe I take that 80% that we're never going to buy and put that earned media article in front of them, and I get a few of them to read it, and they get that same emotional response. And maybe they were at 48% of the mark to choose me, and they didn't get over the 50% mark. And maybe this article does that. And that's the real power of earned media. I had a local carpet company in New Jersey that we did a campaign, got great coverage in their trade publications. And the first thing I pointed out is your customers don't read trade publications. Other carpet companies do. And
Oh,
they said, when we told you that's what we wanted, we have a bigger picture. So we kept doing that, and to the end of the year, we had 30 clips from them. We did get them in their local newspaper and in New Jersey Magazine, which they said is a big, big deal for them. And they were based in New Jersey, and like 28 trade publications. They printed them out, put them in a binder, And every time they gave someone a quote, they would say, look, we're not going to come in the cheapest, but we rarely have ever had to come back and restretch a carpet or fix a seam. We do it right. And here you can see they open the book and they say, we've been picked up by Floor Trade Weekly. We've been picked up by, Coverings Today,
Oh,
all these
nice.
different places. And here we are in the local newspaper, and here we are in New Jersey Magazine. They closed that book. No one read an article. It was less than a minute. And just by adding that, they increased their conversion rate by 17% every time they went into someone's home. So almost one out of every five sales that they were losing, they were now converting just by adding that credibility boost. That brag book is what they called it to their sales thing. And that's the real value of earned media. I guarantee you just take a copy of your press release from a bunch of websites and print it out and show it. I don't think you're going to get the increase in conversions anything close to 17%.
Right. Man, that is genius. I love it. That was with our call answering service. That's the biggest challenge is essentially proving trust, which I imagine that's a challenge for a lot of businesses, big or small. Because we are saying, like, yeah, you are trust us. And we know they can trust us, but they don't know that they can trust us. And they're the ones writing the check. So we got to get them to trust us, kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, it never dawned on me. I guess I was treating press releases as a different means of advertising
Right.
rather than a means to actually build trust. So
Yeah.
that's
I
cool. I
think if
like
you
that.
go into press releases with the marketing mentality and then dig in and put another 15% more energy and creativity into it, you can make a huge difference. You can go in. I think the people who come in and test it and do a few releases and nothing really happens, it happens a lot. But if you go in and you're creative and you really do strategic types of releases and you're playful with it and you test a lot of different approaches, you'll have a much better outcome, and you may be really shocked at how well it works for you.
Nice. Tell me just really quick last question here because I know we're running out of time. I started to ask you this before, but I want to dig into it a little bit more. The PR stuff, is that a one time thing or you recommended people hire a company like yours or whatever monthly, weekly, daily? I don't know, whatever
Right.
it
So
is.
I always tell people if you're going to try press releases, I would prefer that you do a PR campaign of 6 to 8 releases.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I would never tell anybody create a Google ad campaign, get 30 clicks. If you don't, sell anything, stop. You have to have enough of a sample to know whether it's going to work for you. And for PR, it is a single PR campaign, and it's usually 6 to 8 releases. They're never about the same thing unless you're doing really well. Sometimes if you knock it out of the park and you get a lot of media pickup, you can write about a similar type of release and continue to milk it. That's what we did with that carpet company. Um, in a brainstorm, I asked them who their biggest enemy was, and they said it was big box home improvement stores. And he said the funny thing is the trade publications have never talked about it, and everybody that reads trade publications are other local carpet companies. So we did a
Oh,
David versus Goliath, why big box home improvement stores are so bad for the carpet industry, and we got like 10 places picked it up the first time, and we continue to do themes along that line, and it still continued to work. So try different approaches, but if it works, test if you can, get the lightning to strike again, because some often in PR you can. And also, just be strategic. And when I say strategic, I can point people directly to my free masterclass. I have an hour-long video masterclass that's completely free. It's good for anybody with from no background in PR to people who've tried several, and it will teach you what are strategic types of releases that anybody can incorporate and do. And it's available at ereleases.com/plan, PLAN. And again, it's completely free, less than an hour. I recognize I'm not going to watch a 12-hour course. I know the average person isn't. So I made it short and easy to digest. I consider it like an audit where you can go through and come up with potential ideas for what that PR campaign should consist of. But do a PR campaign, give it a try. And I have one idea in my arsenal that I share that has never failed. The least amount of articles that one press release generated was 4. The average is 8 to 14 articles every time someone does that. And
Wow.
and yet there are people who've spent 20, 40, $60,000 with a PR firm and got no earned media. And yet if they had done that one, it would have worked. It always works.
Nice. Well, we'll check that out. Tell me, or tell us, I should say, tell us that website one more time.
Sure, it's eReleases.com/plan, PLAN.
Awesome. I love it. Mickie, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, you're very welcome.
I feel like after talking with you that I have wasted a lot of money with PR stuff that I didn't even know. I mean, in the end, it was me throwing spaghetti at the wall because I didn't know what I was buying. But I remember paying PR company, I think it was just on Fiverr or something like that, when I pushed my book out in 2017. And I'll have to look back and even see what I bought because I don't remember getting anything from it. But it's interesting. It's very good to know something that I've been meaning to know about for a long time. So I appreciate you being on the show.
Sure, absolutely.
This has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. My name is James Kateman, and Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering and receptionist services for service businesses across the country on the web at callsoncall.com. And of course, the Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur in all of us, available wherever fine books are sold. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners, as well as our guest, Mickie Kennedy. Mickie, can you tell us that website one more time?
Sure, it's eReleases.com/plan, PLAN.
Perfect. If you're listening or watching this on the web, if you could do us a huge favor, keep the algorithm happy, thumbs up, subscribe, and of course, share it with your entrepreneurial friends. Normally, I tell people to share it with your entrepreneurial friends in a specific industry, but in the case of PR, I feel like it is safe to say I don't know of any industry that couldn't use it. Maybe catalytic converter stealing or something like that, but I'm certain that every industry could use PR. So, Mickie, thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night at the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. Thank you for listening. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome. And if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.